day of the Future Print Virtual Summit, and I'm absolutely honoured in a way to have my first guest of the day, who is Sean Smith. And as many of you know, this gentleman often is travelling, where we are all travelling, and speaking at conferences and enlightening us with his wisdom around where the market is going. And so for me, it's great to have him with us because, you know, we're in this kind of post-COVID period and we're trying to work out, all of us, where we go next. So the man to bring in and ask is, of course, this gentleman, Sean.
Fraser, thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening, and thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I've prepared a few slides, and hopefully, Perfect. If the miracle of technology allows us,
in our virtual world, as we are.
In our virtual world,
that's brilliant.
Move away from my virtual office and share with you some thoughts.
Thank you.
Of how I think the printing sector, the print markets are going to fare post the pandemic we find ourselves in at the moment.
Fantastic.
So if I can get this to work, so I'm afraid that I'm not going to give you a huge amount of good news over the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm afraid. Because this is what real disruption, and I'm not talking about business school disruption or the marketing directors of various new technology companies are talking about. This is real disruption. It's never happened before in any of our lives. And in printing, I'm afraid there are already casualties and there will be more. There will be a bounce back, but there will be permanent changes. And we're going to see significant changes in behavior of businesses and in behavior of consumers. And we're going to see new players coming in. And these new players do not know the rules. They don't know the old rules that we have operated in printing and in packaging over many years. However, there are also going to be opportunities in the day after when this pandemic finally goes away for printing companies. Now, when I was a kid, I was really enjoyed the idea of adventure and exploration and discovery. And I was very taken by the fact that these strange mariners in the Middle Ages didn't know what was happening. And they put, and if you're not familiar with my Latin, here be dragons. And I thought this was a very good metaphor for what's happening at the moment. Because the mariners of the Middle Ages didn't know that there were dragons there. What they were pointing out in ways that you would not be able to misunderstand is they didn't know what was there. And we don't know what is there. So what I'm going to be talking about for the next few minutes, please bear in mind, here be dragons. No one knows how this is going to play out and how it's going to work. Because we're living in extraordinary times. Oil prices, negative. People are paying $20 a barrel to store oil, or they were on a certain day when contracts were coming to a close. We have the IMF producing forecasts. I'm going to be talking about their economic forecasts because economics determine print markets hugely. But then a couple of days later, the head of the IMF comes out and says that their own organization's forecasts may be too optimistic. Nobody quite knows what's going on there. But what we do see is we're going to see more of this type of operation. We're going to see casualties. We're going to see liquidators. We're going to see machinery. We're going to see equipment. We're going to see flows of customers changing hands radically. We're seeing some extraordinary things happening. We're seeing companies sharing their intellectual property, unheard of 2 months ago, now making it open. And this includes companies like Canon. If you can fight against the COVID virus, use any of our IP, use any of our technology that might help you. We're seeing printing companies and packaging companies being extraordinarily innovative and fighting and joining in the fight against COVID, making face shields, making PPE equipment, and various other things. And as Ed Zumbiel in Zumbiel Packaging in the States says, if you can make a donut box, you can make face shields. Trivial comment, perhaps, throwaway comment, but hugely important, because going forward, the printing company that you were, the packaging company that you were or that you're supporting and you're selling to is going to be a different organization. They can do new things and they can do different things. If I look at the markets for printing and packaging, I work with Smithers Pyre. I'm an independent, but I also spend a lot of my time with Smithers. And I wrote a report that was published toward the end of last year, Future of Global Printing to 2024. Since then, we've seen the arrival of COVID, we've seen new economic forecasts, and I've personally and my colleagues there in the market research department have sat in on various webinars such as these, which are hugely interesting. And I've had discussions with individual printing companies, converters, paper manufacturers, ink suppliers, suppliers to ink makers, manufacturers of equipment. We're talking to brands and we're talking to publishers and print buyers to try and understand what's happening. And generally, the market forecasts that Smithers produced were quite positive in value terms. Constant value, we see regular growth of between 2 or 3% in value across all printing, publishing, and packaging over the next 5 years, following a period of reasonable growth in the last 5 years. But we don't quite know what's going to happen, so we're putting some scenarios together. And the scenarios are dependent, effectively, on the economic impacts and the length of term of the lockdowns and the economic slowdowns. And we have an optimistic scenario. Well, it's optimistic, but pretty pessimistic in comparison to what we thought was going to be happening just a couple of months ago in value. We've then got scenario 2, which I would say is probably the likely one with what we know at the moment, but it's changing on a day-by-day basis. And then some people are talking about a long-term fall, an L-shaped recession with recovery slightly over a longer period. But whatever happens, I think the world has changed in printing, and some changes are going to be irreversible. They're not going to come back in those areas. And I think globally, we're going to see falls between 7, a little over 7, and between 7 and 10% this year against our forecast, the Smithers forecast. In terms of print volume, well, print volumes are actually declining overall. And this is global. We see some rising markets, and we see some mature markets that are declining. And this is even more pessimistic. We see declines, a wee bit of a bounce back potentially in 2021, hopefully, which is what the IMF is forecasting. If that doesn't happen and we sort of can't get the right solutions from our politicians, we see declines in print volume of traditional printing products between 11.5%, 15.5%. This is a huge change. To put it in context, we probably saw between 3 and 4% of print volume drop after the 2008 slowdown. And the value was only down between 1 and 2% globally. There are some areas where it's more pronounced, other areas where it's less pronounced. And I've been looking at lots and lots of forecasts and lots of areas. And there have been some interesting things coming out. And Heidelberg, for example, has started publishing the impact on their cloud-connected printing presses across the world. And one of the things that they've shown that's very interesting that we also believe is the prospects for different parts of the market are very different. So on the 13th of April, Heidelberg produced this global map of printing presses in different countries across the world and how they were faring in the commercial sector. And it was a scale from 1, severe impact, And this is the red that is North America, it's part of Western Europe, it's India, it's Australasia, and it's part of Southern Africa, where multiple print shops have stopped production completely. And we're seeing productivity levels far below 40% of their normal level. And this is just unprecedented in there. Interestingly, the green bit, where there's a positive impact, is actually improving above the market. That started to happen in some parts of Asia, and particularly in China. And as we know, much earlier into the pandemic, and hopefully out earlier as well. But then 2 weeks later, slightly better, still a lot of red and a lot of orange on that market, but a little sort of bounce back as signs of the lockdown coming out have been observed. In packaging, a very different scenario. And again, this is Heidelberg's figures for their packaging presses across the world that they have connected to their cloud-based recording system. And you're seeing in Europe, packaging volumes holding up remarkably well. UK perhaps not so, but the decline nowhere near as deep as it was in the commercial side. And 2 weeks later, even more green and even more signs of decline. India had some specific issues with board shortages that have impacted their printing sector after the very quick close down that the government put in there. But you're seeing very different prospects of print already happening within the overall print market. And we track print, and we can basically put it into three categories: publishing, newspapers, books, magazines, directories; graphic printing, which is commercial printing, it's security printing, advertising print, everything from signage to inserts to direct mail, and general commercial print. And then there's packaging and labels, and this is printed packaging and labels, as well as the printed packaging and labels, of course, there's a lot more. And this was our forecast. And a lot of the growth, as you can see, is in the grey sector, which is packaging and labels. And we now start applying our scenarios. And you're seeing there is still growth in the low impact scenario, but packaging broadly unaffected. There will be some areas of packaging in luxury packaging that is not necessarily printed in a lot of the industrial and transit packaging, but a lot of that is not printed. But you're seeing declines here in value across the market, deeper declines in scenario two, and this is the one that at the moment we think is possibly the most likely with the information we have, but it could change. And a deep decline, you're seeing even levels of printed packaging dropping, but publishing being hugely impacted and graphics significantly impacted. In value terms, similar pattern happening in print volume terms, going down, further down with maybe a little bounce back after this year to next year, but again, below what we thought the market was going to be originally, and then a longer term decline and less a bounce back for the traditional printed products. And a simplistic area looking at the impact on the different categories of print and different categories of packaging. And all of them, I'm afraid, are going to be impacted. This is broadly between a 0 and 3% decline in the lowest impact, between 3 and 6% in the median, and above 6%, and in some cases significantly above 6% in the long term against our forecast. I can only stress that there are going to be slight differences regionally, and the prospects of different printing areas are there. We're going to see some slight bounce back, but I think we're going to see an irrevocable change as consumer things change and work habits also change. Now, the economics is the key driver for print market demand, but also the individual preferences of consumers determine how is happening. We're seeing at the moment advertising spend accelerating towards online, partly because it's much simpler to do and much easier to do. But I think it's also to do with the fact that the tech giants have huge cash reserves and are able to promise more changes as they're going forward. We're seeing rising in e-commerce as people lock down and cannot go out, more consumer purchasing from home. Some people who've never been on e-commerce sites before try it out. Some of them will remain there. As long as there is concern over meeting and the potential of catching a disease in a public place, people are going to be reluctant to go to shops, to supermarkets, despite the new social distancing measures. In packaging, it's going to be less impacted, we think, and there's some interesting things happening. And at the moment, everything I speak to, brands, consumers, hygiene and safety is going to trump sustainability in the short term. We're even seeing plastic bags being widely used. And it's one of the reasons that some of the supermarkets and grocery chains cannot meet demand for online purchasing is they do not have enough plastic bags to fill the orders with, because we moved away from it. And I think that we're going to see more packaged goods in the short term, and I don't think that's going to go away. And I think we're even going to see single-use plastic packaging, not the biggest enemy of the world that it seemed to be last year. In the longer term, I see that supply chain security is going to be more important to most brands than cost. And this is going to be a huge change. We're going to see reshoring of many manufacturing things. We're going to see large companies having backup suppliers rather than single sourcing suppliers, because whoever you are, if there's a lockdown and borders are closed and you cannot get your product out, you will not get that back. And people will buy whatever they can. I find I am in possession of a bottle of cucumber-flavored gin because it was the only one I could get. It wasn't the one I would have bought from choice, but it's hopefully going to remain in our household for a long time and not be consumed. But it could well be consumed if there's no other there. I think you're going to see some significant changes for printing. But there is relevant and useful print during and after COVID. So one of the things that's been boosted in the short term is educational printing for homeschooling. Companies cannot meet the demand in the short term in that. I don't think it's going to last forever, but it's starting to go there. Someone very kindly sent me a pack of lockdown coffee, digitally printed, a good way of advertising. It had an awful lot more interest from me than many direct mail pieces that I've had when it finally arrived through. And I'm delighted to see that some agencies and brands are using print to maintain community and to sort of show the importance. And a simple billboard, it's perhaps not something that you can easily do online. So to sort of let me sort of close my bit and in there. For the printing companies and for companies who are supplying printing companies, we see that there are 4 R's are going to be ever more important. And we're going to see resilience. Can you survive this initial downturn? And many printing companies and packaging companies will not be able to. But they need to plan for this, for the return, when we get back to the post-lockdown areas. Demand in certain sectors are going to be significantly reduced, but there will be a return. And as a management group, you have to reimagine what your future is going to be and reform your company accordingly. You're going to see short-term cash conservation, and there are going to be restructuring of the industry sectors. We're going to need to have a new balance of supply and demand. But as always in those cases, there are opportunities. Opportunities to do things differently and opportunities to do new things. I see printing companies diversifying, they're broadening their service offering. It's interesting, we had early in the scenario companies making personal protection equipment and finding actually the skills that we have within the printing and packaging sector can be used to do an awful lot more things. At some stage, I hope we're going to find there are going to be certain materials which the virus is going to be unable to survive on. Printing that, using that on goods, equipment, even on signage in stores, certainly on wall coverings in healthcare units, is going to be a potential new opportunity. You're seeing industrial printing. This is using printing technology to decorate things that are not in the traditional packaging and printing sector. We're seeing 3D printing companies moving in, producing specialist bits of equipment for the ventilators and the healthcare, whether it be for a mask or something else. And printing companies are joining in and doing things that they never used to be able to do. I think there's going to be, for equipment manufacturers and suppliers, 2020 is going to be a disastrous year. We're going to see a lot lower investment in equipment. But what it means for the printing companies is they can actually now make a sensible make or buy decision. Do I need to have that new press? Can I work with somebody else, partner with a second source, give them my production, and I'll manage a lot of the added value areas. I'll manage the relationship with the customer. I'll manage the pre-press. I'll manage the job stocking, warehousing, distribution, getting it to their customers and helping their customers. Because I think we're going to see an awful lot of innovation for the companies who survive this scenario. We're going to see innovation in production. I see an acceleration towards digital production methods, but I see real innovation in business models because nothing is off limits. And if I can support a customer or somebody who has a need to do things in different ways, I'll do it. I know of packaging companies who are taking in the high volume products and packaging them for the companies for home use. So I see companies taking large bags of flour, repacking them into small bags, and maintaining a demand. But nothing is off limits. I think that going forward, if you're what I would categorize a traditional ink on paper with a little bit of finishing, so you need to broaden your thinking and do new things for your customers. So that's a quick view of the way that I believe the printing and packaging markets are going to be restructuring going forward.
Brilliant. I mean, to be honest with you, Sean, you did say that I could interrupt at any point, but I'm kind of speechless, really, which is kind of unheard of for me. Genuinely, that was so insightful and so useful. I think that anyone listening to this would find that quite enlightening, because I think every one of us is puzzled by what the future holds, and that just helped us to get some context around the industry, the print industry, and work out in our minds what we do next. And I guess my question, if there was a question, and you pretty much answered everything that I would have asked, but I guess if there was a question, I would be saying to you, if I'm a commercial printer or even a wide format printer, what should I do next?
Well, I think, depending on who you talk to, some companies have effectively closed down for the duration, and what they're going to do when they come back. Others have sort of run on skeleton staffs and done small things. We've seen in the short term huge demand for graphics and signage in store and in public buildings. And as companies go back to work, I think you'll see the ability to sell screening so that you can maintain social distancing, but still
maybe even branded screening.
Well, it could be branded or
stickers on.
I've seen in factories people. Well, we are now instigating a single, a one-way system. And this needs signage. People need to answer. But that's going to be a short-term
solution.
But in the when stores come back, I have no doubt there will be a lot of new branding. There'll be new opportunities for brands. But exactly how it goes, I do not know.
No. I guess if you're a commercial printer doing a lot of direct mail, or you're just kind of puzzling over. As the points you made were correct, and all the research is pointing to segments like packaging being the one segment that was growing anyway, but in this instance continues to be important.
It is, but of course, packaging, printed packaging is only a small portion of the overall packaging.
Yeah.
And depending on how deep the recession is, then I think you'll see a lot of industrial packaging, the equipment, machinery, whatever it might be, fall. But I think more customer-facing materials are important. A lot of packaging companies are brilliant at making packaging, but they've got no idea about data.
Sure.
And how to get the packs to other people. I think you'll see supply chain changes, getting closer to the consumer, the warehouses of distribution companies.
That's got to be good, hasn't it, for digital print in a way, because of that sort of speed to market, speed to respond. Do you sense?
Yes, I think the key benefit of digital packaging and digital
print generally
is getting closer to the customer.
Yeah.
Whoever that end user might be.
Sure.
Provided you can maintain a very good source of targeted, useful, interesting, and relevant communication. And digital is better at doing that than analog. And I think it's a huge an acceleration of this change.
Yeah. Okay. I want to
take maybe a bit lower.
Sorry, Sean, I just want to ask a couple of things as we get to that sort of ending point. I guess that if you are a small to medium-sized business, maybe 20, 30, 40 people, and you furloughed your company to take, I guess because you just felt to stop and, had made a decision maybe to restart in September based on, how things were going. Would you have suggested to them that kind of complete shutdown, and I think I've seen this in quite a few wide format, particularly in wide format market, they kind of shut down completely. Has that been a good decision? Because I sensed it was possibly you're going to be, slower to start again. What's your feeling about this?
It's a hugely difficult question because the individual forces, pressures on companies differ, and the level of resilience that you have as a business. I suspect that a little activity is better than none. Whether it be even saying, okay, well, I'm not going to do any manufacturing, but I'm going to partner with my friend up the road, my ex-enemy up the road, and see if we can together sort of keep two things ticking over rather than one. But one of the interesting things that I've seen from a couple of organizations are that they're doing totally different things. They've closed the printing department down, but he's effectively renting out the delivery and doing stuff for gardens.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right, isn't it? And so the particular example I was thinking of, I have a good friends who run a business, a wide format business, and he closed the business till September, and I just said, look, you've got people who are web designers, you've got graphics designers in your team. Now you've stopped them working. Now you and I, when we both spoke just half an hour ago, at the beginning said we're both very busy. There's lots of demand out there for certain skills. Do you think that maybe they've missed this opportunity to keep that thing, keep something going?
I suppose it's very easy for me to say, oh, keep going.
Yeah.
I tend to be, or try to be more optimistic than other areas. But in some instances, you were not allowed to do that.
No, I know you weren't. Yeah, that's right.
And the government, whether in Italy or Spain or in France, would not allow you to do that. Then you may have been reclassified as an essential industry.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure
difficulty, isn't it? It's sort of
whatever the definition of essential is. I suspect many wide format printers
are not that essential.
Necessarily fall into that all the time. But it's think what you're doing. Use your time usefully.
I know. I think that's right.
And you can think, oh, the world is terrible. Yes, it is, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, and we're all in it.
We're in the middle of it. Nobody really knows. So use this time to think through, or to try and think through. And say, okay, scenario plan. What happens if I have no business at all? Right. What do I do? Are there anything I can do? Whether it be sweeping the streets or stacking the trolley.
No, I agree.
Sean,
can I just ask you one final thing, which I think really pertains to the fact that we're doing something virtually, and obviously this is a virtual summit, and we know that Drupal and Vespa both postponed. And what do you sense about the market in terms of trade shows? Will they take place in the next 12 months? What do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be a medical decision ultimately, and we're talking about economics, we're talking about business. The human cost is far higher. We've lost anybody or areas, and it is astonishing that you see 500 deaths a day. Think, oh, that's good.
It's a jumbo jet going down, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It's staggering. And whatever the numbers are, I'm not sure we'll never really know. But I see there is a huge appetite for collaboration. I think I don't know when it's going to happen, but when it's safe to have an exhibition, and I think there's going to be huge appetite for it. In the meantime, we are looking at these virtual things, and they are becoming sort of popular. I don't know how many areas, numbers, and things in that. But frankly, there is no real way of actually getting your hands on it, kicking it, feeling it, seeing what's under the hood.
Yeah, I mean, we all prefer to be face to face. We all prefer that. We all prefer that face-to-face contact, and
it is. I see there's an appetite for this. I suspect that it'll be a smaller Drupal or a smaller Vespa than it would otherwise have been.
Yeah.
But I hope it's going to be more concentrated.
Yeah. Listen, thank you very much for that. I'm just conscious of time. We've really packed it in, but I'm ever so pleased we have, because it's been an excellent session, and I'm really hopeful that people listen to this. I know that you've put some effort into giving us this information, and I think it's been absolutely invaluable. And so thank you very much to you, Sean.
Fraser, thank you very much. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, keep safe.